Hello, Hockey Tank fans. This is Trevor and this is Steve. And as you may know, the trade deadline was on March 21st, 2022. This is our recap video, basically just going over the trades and giving you our thoughts on it. So how this is going to work is we're just going to go division by division and talk about all the trades that happened and just see what we think about it and how it helps the team or maybe who won, who lost the trades. And maybe at the end we'll I don't know, just give some winners and losers of the trade deadline. Does that sound good to you, Steve?
Sounds perfect, man. Let's get on the ball here.
Awesome. Which division would you like to start with?
Let's go with the Metro. See what
The
they do.
Metro division. All right, so we'll do the Eastern Conference first. We'll start with the Metro. So the first trade we have here is Nathan Boulieu to Pittsburgh for a conditional seventh. Nothing special about that one. The next trade was something of value, is Marcus Johansson from Seattle goes to Washington for Daniel Sprong, a sixth and a fourth. Do you have any thoughts on this one?
Yeah, it was a fine trade. I think Seattle got what they wanted. Capitals got what they wanted. Sprong actually scored in his first game in Seattle, so I think it's a fair trade. Both teams got what they wanted.
Definitely. And we're seeing as Daniel Sprong's career keeps going and going and going, his value is getting less and less and less, which is tough. I thought he was going to be a good scorer in the National League, but
Yeah,
hopefully he'll find his game in
I
Seattle.
chose him as a breakout player this year in an earlier Hockey Tank episode, so kind of shit the bed on that. But he still can come in with a 15 to 20 goal season. I mean, it's gonna be tough, but you
Yeah,
got to have
especially in
belief.
Seattle.
Well,
It's
that's a team where you get some ice time. So
Yeah, that's right. It's tough to see Seattle try to build this winning team at the draft or at the expansion draft like Vegas did, and then to see how far they fell. So
oh yeah, total
it sucks that
collapse.
they're already going into a rebuild, only 1 year into their expansion, but I don't know.
It's not
Hopefully better
working.
things ahead. Another trade involving the Caps, Johan Larson to Washington for a third rounder. He came from Arizona. Nothing too special, just a depth forward.
Yeah, it's good that Arizona gets a pick. So yeah, it's fair. I think depth is good in the playoffs. So good trade.
For sure. Andrew the Hamburglar Hammond, picked up by Montreal and then traded the New Jersey Devils for Nate Shar. I think that's how you say it.
Yeah, I think
Um,
he's more of a work in progress player, and Hammond, I mean, his value is actually like dog shit right now because I mean he's so old. But not to roast the guy because he's a Hamburglar, but I mean,
he's got free
it's
McDonald's
just
for life, man. You pay a lot of money for that.
yeah, it is what it
So
is.
for sure. All right, some trade with a bit of value as well. Ricard Raquel to Pittsburgh from Arizona or Anaheim, sorry, for Zach Aston Reese, Dominic Simone, and Cal Klang, as long with a second rounder. Sorry.
Was the
Do you
second
think the
rounder this
value was
year?
there for
I
Ricard?
forget.
Pardon?
Second rounder was this year, was it? I kind of
I'm not too
forget.
sure. I didn't have it wrote down, but
Um,
probably yeah.
I I think that's okay. Considering they got two firsts for Brandon Hagel. I mean, it did have a lot of players involved in that. I think that's more of a player trade rather than a pick some prospect trade. So I think the return's okay, but Pittsburgh definitely got the best player. And if that pick is a miss in the second round, you might see Pittsburgh winning this deal. And I guess Raquel would have the sign long term in Pittsburgh as well. So
Yeah.
if it is a rental, it makes more sense.
I didn't. I thought Zach Aston Reese and Dominic Simone were pretty good players, but obviously it's worth getting rid of them to bring in Ricard Raquel. I mean, Raquel is easily a great second liner, and he can even play some power play. So
Hmm.
he kind of reminds me of a Phil Kessel back in Pittsburgh. I mean,
Yeah.
they definitely wanted to bring back Phil, but I guess Phil didn't want to move. So having Ricard Raquel there is definitely a good alternate.
Yeah, I think Klang is a goalie prospect too. So I heard it. I believe he's
Yep,
fairly good. And I'm saying Pittsburgh won this right now because there's a little bit of uncertainty in Anaheim's side, but it's not that far off.
for sure. Yeah, and Anaheim, as we'll see later, completely just rebuilding for the future now, which is good. Um, so our last trade in the Metro Division is Max Domi went to Carolina for Aiden Harishachuk.
Yeah, I'm not too
Have you ever?
familiar with him.
Yeah, me neither. Well, he was a obviously a Carolina prospect. They felt they didn't need anymore, so they sent Aiden Harishchuk to Columbus.
Was that the
What do you
extent of
think
the
of?
deal?
Pardon?
No picks,
No picks. That's it. One for
full
one.
salary,
Full
or
salary.
decent?
Full
Yeah,
salary.
well, I'm liking this deal in Carolina though, because
Yeah.
they need some bite. They got Martin up, but it doesn't hurt to have a guy like Domi who can still put the puck in the net and be a bit of a force on the ice and piss some guys off.
Yeah. Just like Sprong, we're seeing that Max Domi's trade value is just getting lower and lower as his career goes on.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know much about Tereshchuk. Um, I assume he's a decent prospect just to go one for one for Max Domi. So we'll have to see what he can do in Columbus in the future. But I'm thinking Carolina definitely won this deal.
Right now, I would think Carolina got what they needed rather than Columbus got what they needed, if that makes any sense.
I think it's a decent deal for both, but yeah, for sure, Max Domi is going to help this Carolina team really go over the edge and make a deep playoff run. I think.
Yeah, he's a good piece.
Good stuff. On to the Atlantic Division. This is a bit longer. Frankie Vitrano to New York Rangers for a 2022 fourth rounder, and that's going back to Florida.
That's fine. I think Rangers pick up the salary of Vitrano and they pick up a depth forward, which I think they need more than Florida. So, fine trade in my eyes.
Yeah, as this we see a lot in New York on on this list for sure. Second trade, and that trade was definitely made to get some salary out to bring in Ben Sherratt from Montreal. He goes to Florida for Tyler Smelnick, 2023 first, a 2022 fourth. What do you think of this deal? Do you think Ben Sherratt was worth that?
Smelnick's a good prospect too, as far as I know. Uh, I'm thinking Montreal did really good here for a guy who's a good defenseman, but he's definitely not elite. I think that's a good return. I
I heard there was the initial value on him was just a first rounder, and then you know how these things go. There was a bidding war later on that day between a couple teams, and Florida just said, "Fuck it, all right, we're throwing in a prospect, and we'll give you a fourth." And
Yeah, I'm gonna give
Ken
the edge
Johnson
to
said, or
Ken
is
Hughes.
that us? Ken Hughes, sorry. Yeah, said, "I don't need to hear anymore. Let's do it."
I'm gonna give the seller the edge on this one. I think Montreal did well here, getting rid of a Sherratt.
Yeah, definitely. I think they definitely won as well. Ben Trott was just, I don't know, a lot of teams like this playoff experience in the last some odd years. In the last like 4 years, I think he had like 50 playoff games. So a lot of teams looked at that. Or is
Hmm.
that even possible?
He's
Maybe
definitely.
in the past
I think it's
7 years or
probably
something.
yeah. His career. I mean, he's been a solid defenseman, but I think I just like this deal from Montreal because of what they're doing. But it is still a valuable pickup for Florida. I just think Montreal has the edge here
For sure.
overall.
It's interesting we didn't see Jeff Petrie get moved as well, but I
Maybe
know
an off-season move.
that's true. Yeah, he still does have some term, so that's not one you want to make at trade deadline and force stuff. You want to take your time with that one. You're right.
Hmm.
Um, one of the biggest trades we've seen, and wow, Brandon Hagel goes to Tampa Bay Lightning from Chicago for 2 first rounders, Taylor Radish and Boris Kachuk, I think actually.
Kachuk, yep.
What's your initial thoughts on this one?
I think Chicago won a deal for the first time in a long time.
Yeah,
Um, I like what Chicago gets, man, for Hagel. I mean, Hagel's a really useful young guy. Can
got a
put the puck in
great
the net.
got a great contract too.
Yeah, great contract and put the puck in the net. Just a solid forward. I think 2 first rounds is a bit much, man. Considering every other deal that happened at the deadline, I don't think there was a price like this one. Uh, so I don't know. I think Chicago did really well here, but at the same time, Tampa gets a really good contract, and he goes to a really good team who's looking to go
Yeah,
on a long run. So
absolutely.
it works
I
for
thought it was
both.
an
But
overpay as well. I didn't
yeah,
think I didn't think Brandon Hagel on paper was worth that, but I mean, Breeze Bob must have been watching him and said we got to get this player whatever it takes, and well, he done it. So
and you can't
moving
question
on.
Breezeball
Or-
either because he made some really good deadline moves to get to Tampa Bay, get Tampa Bay 2 cups.
yeah,
So
exactly.
don't
And
question him, really.
no, exactly. Hampus Lindholm and Cody Curran are headed to Boston from Anaheim, as we were saying earlier, for a 2022 first rounder, 2 second rounders, John Moore, Urko Vakanainen, and Anaheim also retains 50% of Lindholm's salary. That was a lot. So I guess we'll break it down. Lindholm in Boston, I think it's a good fit. What do you think?
I think it's a good fit, but and he signed an extension too, so
Yeah,
that's
he
why
did.
the
Yeah,
price was. I think it was a bit higher because they knew they were going to work on an extension immediately. But damn, Anaheim's really making some good moves here for the future.
yeah, they are
Considering all the moves they've made in general, uh, I think they're doing really good for themselves. Even if they might not win every
Verbeek.
trade, they're still getting picks. They're still getting assets.
Yeah, Pat Verbeek had basically no time to look at this team and see what he wanted to improve on, what he wanted out, and he's done a great job so far of deciding in a very
Yeah.
short period of time what he wants.
Yeah, you need fresh eyes on situations too. I mean, Murray was the manager there for a long time,
Mm-hmm.
and Verbeek comes in and he just sees what needs to be done. And I think he's the right man for the job. I think they made a really good choice there.
For sure. Claude Giroux goes to Florida. Probably this is the biggest move of all trade deadline.
Hmm.
Claude Giroux to Florida for Owen Tippett, a first round, a third, and Philly retains 50% of Giroux's cap. What do you think here?
Best player is Giroud. I think Florida wins. I think the reason there's not a lot of assets in this deal for an impact player like that is because he's probably not staying in Florida beyond this year. I think he tests free agency. Um,
Interesting. I've heard a lot of podcasts say that Claude Giroux was basically on the only team he wanted to go to and would waive his no move, or I think he has a partial no move or something, was to Florida. So that really put the GM of
in a tough
Philly in a
spot.
really tough spot.
Yeah.
And that's why they didn't get more for him. I heard Colorado was offering a bit more and driving the price up a bit, but Claude Giroux just said, I'd rather go to Florida, trade me to Florida. And so there's a chance he might stick around. Owen Tippett, I wouldn't count this guy out already. He is probably one of the best shooters still that hasn't proved himself in the NHL. I think he's got an insanely deadly shot. So I wouldn't rule this guy out either.
No, I just see a guy like Giroud go somewhere, and I'm thinking, wow, like Hagel 2 first rounds, but his hands were tied, like you said, there wasn't many options, and when you're put in a spot like that as a general manager, you're lucky to get what you get when a guy's not willing to go necessarily where you can get the best deal. So it is what
For
it is,
sure.
but I
And
think
what
I
a,
think Panthers win, man.
yeah, I think so too. But what a better guy to go to Philly. Their team color is orange. Their mascot is orange. Giroux and Voracek, the most notable players, are both gingers, and then they just bring in another ginger in
Yeah,
Owen
it's
Tippett.
just it's just the next wave of gingers that's it's gonna run through this team.
That's right. Is Cam York's not Cam York? Does he have red hair, orange hair?
I don't know, man, but it's pretty scary being a guy projected to go like 10 to 30 in the draft with ginger hair. I mean, you're pretty well like you just get your apartment in Philly, pack your bags. You're pretty well going.
Enough jokes. Let's get back to this. Robert Hagg. I know you don't think very highly of him, but he went to Florida, and all they had to give up was a 6 rounder to Buffalo to bring him in.
Just a depth defenseman.
Yeah, I think this
Um,
might have been a reaction to the Ekblad injury and just
mhm.
saying, all right, maybe our defense isn't as sure as it could be. Obviously, we need to replace this defenseman, and I don't know. So, yeah, like you
Yeah,
said, just depth, basically.
it's just to be sure, like your hands aren't tied when it matters the most, and you can't make a move. So I think Florida wins again. Honestly, I mean 6 round pick is fuck all in this
Yeah,
day and
right.
age.
And where they're drafting, that's more like a 7th rounder. So,
Yeah.
no, let's get to your team. Mark Giordano and Colin Blackwell go to Toronto for 2 second rounds and a third, and they obviously came from Seattle. What do you think?
Uh, Initially, I was happy that there was no first round pick involved. Last year, I think Dubas learned his lesson when Nick Foligno came for a first round pick, got injured, didn't really provide much in the regular season in the remaining games, and he didn't have quite an impact in the playoffs either. I like that there's 2 second round picks because you're not losing that prime first round asset. Not to say he won't move at a later date, but a Giordano, really smart defenseman, really going to help that Leafs blue line. A few young guys. Last night they played the New Jersey Devils. He was paired with Timothy Liljegren. I think he helped Liljegren kind of. He steadied his game out and kind of helped him make smart decisions. So I'd like to see that pair continue. Uh, so Giordano, I think, is a great move. Blackwell, energy guy. He can kind of slide in and up the lineup. I don't think he's going to get much time in the regular lineup, but I think where they're going to slide some ice time into him would be on the penalty kill, the power play, second power play unit. He's going to get his ice time on the special teams. So I like the deal, man. I think 3 picks, a team trying to do well. Um, that's fine for me, that deal. But again, you got teams like Florida, Tampa. It's going to be hard to beat those teams in the playoffs. So I would have liked to see them add more overall on the deadline.
Wow.
So I'm a Leafs fan, as you can tell.
Great analysis, Steve. I literally don't have anything else to add to that. That was a pretty complete analysis. I'll give you that.
Yeah, big Leafs fan, obviously.
Fair enough. All right, on to the next trade. Travis Hamnick to Ottawa for a 3rd rounder. Obviously coming from Vancouver. Not too much on that one. Just pretty much a depth move.
Yeah.
Nick Paul to Tampa Bay for Matthew Joseph and a 4th. Trading depth, and Ottawa also gets a 4th rounder.
I like the type of player Tampa's bringing in. They're bringing in guys that can help win cups. Smart
Definitely.
moves again. But Ottawa gets a guy who's probably hasn't reached his potential in Joseph yet too. So I think this is an even trade for both teams right now at where they're.
Yeah, I think so too. Justin Braun was one of the most talked about defenders, and he goes to New York Rangers for a 3rd round pick, going back to Philadelphia.
So. Yeah, that's a. I think that it's an okay price. Again, defensemen are worth more than depth forward. So
especially a right-handed shot, how much they go for.
Seth Jones. I think that's an okay deal. Everyone. Yeah,
definitely. I think he's a great depth defenseman. I was just watching and waiting to see who he'd go to because I knew whoever he went to, they would need it.
Mm-hmm.
Josh Brown also goes to Boston from Ottawa for Zach Senyshyn and a 5th rounder. So not too much to say on that. Zach Senyshyn definitely didn't prove what he was worth. Hopefully he can turn his game around in Ottawa.
Mm-hmm. Let's hope so.
Couple trades here for the Rangers. Andrew Kopp goes to the Rangers from Winnipeg for 2 conditional 2nd round picks and a 6th rounder. And Tyler Mott also goes to New York Rangers for a 4th rounder going back to Vancouver. What do you think of this whole shoring up the depth for the Rangers?
I think that the Rangers are seeing where they are in the standings, and they're going to try and compete in the playoffs. The Eastern Conference is going to be a tight race for any team that makes the playoffs. So they're just trying to make sure they got pieces that can help them out when they need it the most. So I think it's fine what New York did. I don't mind them giving up picks for players at this point.
Yeah, and they didn't have to trade too much of their future either. They never traded any big prospects or their 1st round picks. The most they gave up was a 2nd, and they've got a depth defenseman now, and they've shored up their depth as well. So
yeah, I think it's solid moves, man.
For sure. Michael Mcnevin, an Ottawa goalie, or where's this guy from? I don't even know. Goes to Ottawa, for future considerations. Didn't write down where that was going. I can't remember where
Calgary
from. Calgary. Thank you. Yeah, so just pretty much just a depth move. There's a couple more of these. Riley Nash goes to Tampa Bay for future considerations. Riley Nash obviously belongs to the Arizona Coyotes, so just going to Tampa Bay for a bit of depth. Alexei Melnichuk goes to Tampa Bay for Anton Morand. Don't know if you know who either of those players are.
Yeah, they're kind of guys, minor league guys who haven't quite made it yet.
Minor league prospects, that's it. Just 1-for-1 deal. So that concludes the Atlantic Division. Which division in the West would you like to talk about first?
Let's go Pacific, I think.
Pacific, all right. So Calle Yarncroc goes to Calgary for a 2nd, a 3rd, and a 7th. Do you think this is an overpay? Do you think it's fair value?
Considering what top 9 forwards are going for, I think it's an okay deal. I don't think it's amazing. Calgary's giving up picks because they feel they got a really good team this year and they're coached really well, and they want to try and make a push. So I believe that Calgary wins this deal because they get a guy who's going to help them.
And I can't remember which podcast I was on. I was listening to, but Cal Yarncroc is actually the cousin of Elias Lindholm, the first line center.
Really?
And Lindholm and Yarncroc are from a certain town in Sweden, sorry, and a third player that is on the Calgary Flames that's also from that town is Jacob Markstrom.
Wow.
And this town is pretty small if you consider big cities. This town only has like 75,000 people. So the odds that 3 people from this town would make the NHL, let alone play on the same team, is like astronomical.
Yeah, that's a cool fact, man.
Yeah, I thought that was really cool.
Yeah. Oh.
Yeah, I thought it was a bit of an overpay. A second rounder, a third, and a seventh. I mean, I don't know. They probably could have just did 1-for-1 for the second, but I guess there was other teams involved that were jacking up his price a bit. So
yeah, you got to overpay sometimes to get the player you like.
Yeah, that's right. And if Calgary wins the cup, this is going to be more than worth it,
Yeah, definitely.
Troy Stetcher goes from Detroit to Los Angeles for just a 7th rounder. So that's kind of just a nothing trade. Troy Stetcher hasn't been amazing this year. Just
I thought he had a lot of upside, so it's unfortunate it hasn't worked out.
Vancouver, I was ecstatic.
Yeah, I think LA takes a cake on this one though, because I think they might have a bit of room for him to slide in and maybe show that he's a better player than what he's he did in Detroit. So we'll see.
The chances of that 7th round pick turning into a prospect as good as
it's
Troy
a contract
Stetcher,
dump, I think, just to get rid of a contract.
Yeah.
Well.
I don't think it's that bad. I think Stetcher's only at 1.2, but nonetheless. Kakko Kakkonen goes from Minnesota to San Jose for Kakkonen and a 5th, sorry, goes to San Jose for just Jacob Middleton coming back to Minnesota.
I love this deal. I really love this deal. And it all makes sense because of the trade you're going to talk about in a second, I presume. Kakkonen, good young goalie. Minnesota was having defensive struggles lately. I think Middleton's a guy who replaces an older Goligoski or somebody in the next couple of years, and really, becomes a defensive a staple on that blue line. But he can also get the puck up the ice, so I think this is probably the best move Minnesota did at the deadline.
Not bad. Not a bad prediction. At first, I was kind of shocked. I was like, what are they doing trading away Kakkonen? He's a great defenseman, or goaltender, sorry. And he's going to have to take over Cam Talbot's job when him and the person we talk about later retire. And then I was thinking, geez, they got
Hunter Jones.
Not even Hunter Jones.
And Jesper Wallstedt.
Jesper Wallstedt coming up. So, yeah, flick Kakkonen into the curve.
They have a good goalie.
And for Jacob Middleton, I think this addresses both teams' needs perfectly. San Jose doesn't have a future in their net. Now they do. And Minnesota, like you said, we're having defensive struggles. I think in the last month or two, Minnesota was the worst team for plus minus or goals for or goals against, sorry. So Jacob Middleton obviously helps the future and the present for Minnesota Blue Line. So good stuff. A couple trades for Edmonton. They brought in Brett Kulak for William Lagesson, a conditional 2nd and a 7th. Brett Kulak, I didn't think his value was that high, but apparently Edmonton would beg to differ, and they traded, I think, a defenseman or goalie prospect and a conditional 2nd.
I think he's much like a Justin Braun type of player.
I can see that.
On an okay defenseman. I don't believe he's going to change the narrative in Edmonton. But Edmonton's they're doing fine lately. They're just trying to stay in the playoff hunt, and they're I think they're doing well, all things considered. I think it was a bit of an overpayment. I'd like to see a 3rd round pick there, probably.
That could turn in. It's only a conditional 2nd, so it will turn into a 3rd if conditions aren't met. So
so that would be a lot better of a deal, I think.
For sure. Derek Brassard also headed to Edmonton for a 4th rounder. Just getting some depth in Edmonton.
Yeah,
they
fun move. Need it.
Yeah. Ryan Carpenter is going to Calgary for a 5th rounder from Chicago.
I really like Carpenter. I think that's a cool move, man.
Just for a 5th rounder too.
Yeah,
so what's a 5th rounder?
Not much.
Days? That's right. Anthony Vitto also goes to San Jose for Nick Merkley. And Vitto, I believe, is from, geez, I don't even know. Going to San Jose from Nick Vitto.
New
Where are you
York.
from? New York?
New York Rangers.
Okay. I didn't. Oh, yeah. Geez, yeah. Never mind. He was that defenseman that scored that sick goal last year, wasn't he?
I
That
don't know.
nobody heard of.
He doesn't score many goals, so.
I know it was his first career goal, and it was a beauty.
Oh yeah, I don't remember his goal, so I'm sorry, Nick. Or not
Yeah,
Nick.
but yeah, Nick
Anthony
Vitto
Pitto.
from New York Rangers. That makes sense. But
Anthony Pitto, isn't it?
Anthony, jeez, man, what is wrong with me? Poor Nick and Merkley.
Yeah.
And enough this division bad, so let's just get to the Central. The first defensive move we've seen in the trade deadline, we've seen Josh Manson from Anaheim go to Colorado for Drew Hellison and a second rounder.
Yeah, Colorado picking up a solid defenseman, man.
Oh yeah, he can play the body, a big defenseman, and also is great at moving the puck.
Yeah, again, Anaheim's just giving up roster players, but they're not thinking about right now. They're thinking about, in the future. So I think I really like, regardless of what Anaheim gives up, as long as they keep acquiring assets, I think it's good overall.
Yeah, them. And I believe Drew Hellison's not a bad player either.
No, he was a
highly
NCAA guy, I think. Good defenseman. So
yep. Another guy headed to Colorado was Nico Sturm from Minnesota in exchange for a Tyson Jost. So 2 playoff teams just exchanging depth centers. I'd like to hear your opinion here.
Sturm was on a good contract. Don't think he was going to re-sign in Minnesota. I think that's a lot of the reason they wanted to get rid of him. And Jost is a work in progress depth piece because I think there's upside there, but he obviously hasn't found it yet. He was a high pick, and it's not working out. Yeah,
as far as I'm concerned, Colorado getting rid of some talent to bring in some grit, I think, is all this. They don't have time to wait for Tyson Jost. They got other guys like Newhook coming up, so get rid of him. Bring in
Sturm's a grindy player. Like he can grind out a shift and just like be on the puck like a maniac, and he has good days, bad days. He's been shit sometimes. I've watched him. He's been great some other times. So,
definitely. Minnesota also bringing in Nick Delaurier for a 3rd round pick going back to Anaheim. I love this deal, player. Man. I think one of the best 4th liners in the league. He can fight. He can, score sometimes.
He's already scored.
Yeah, exactly. First game with Minnesota, he scored. Yeah. So and I'm pretty sure he was the first star of the game too, or the 3rd or something.
Yeah, another great move by Minnesota. I think they did extremely well at the deadline. They got a lot tougher and harder to play against.
Yeah, for sure.
Solid move. I really like that.
Yeah, and just for a 3rd, he's a lot. Nick Delaurier is a lot more valuable than 3rd in my eyes. But anyway, I wouldn't pay a second.
He brings certain traits that a lot of players don't have these days. So you can't really. It's hard to put that into perspective on a draft pick scale, I guess.
And how much tougher does Matt Boldy and Kaprizov and Fiala think now that they got Nick Delaurier on the ice with them? Or probably not with them, but staring the other team down on the bench.
Yeah, they don't give a fuck.
No, they're out there running over the goalie if they got Nick Delaurier on the bench.
Exactly.
Speaking of goalies, Scott Wedgwood went to Dallas for a conditional 4th round pick, going back to Arizona. Not much to talk about here. Dallas.
Yeah.
Bringing in another goalie. So what's that now in season? Like 19 goalies going to Dallas.
Yeah, it's not news at this point.
Exactly. Jeremy Lauzon from Boston going to Nashville for a 2nd rounder. Or no, from Seattle. Sorry.
From Seattle. Yeah.
Going to Nashville there for a second rounder.
That's a great pick.
Buddy, I know. Jeremy Lauzon. I called Seattle taking him because I think he's a great defenseman. Going to Nashville now. I didn't think Nashville's blue line needed it, but
no, I didn't think so either. With young guys like Carrier coming up and playing well, I really like that for Seattle. They got a lot of picks.
Yeah,
trying to help them do that.
They have 30 picks in the next 3 years. Did you know that, Seattle?
Yeah, I think they're going to look to try and get a couple first too. You could see a guy like Schwartz move maybe potentially in the future. For bolster up the draft picks.
Yep, another Seattle move. Mason Appleton is headed back to Winnipeg after being drafted in the expansion draft for just a 4th rounder.
Yeah, I figured maybe you'd get another pick with that, maybe 4th and a 6th, but he hasn't performed up to where he needed to be. So what do you expect?
Yeah, that's right. It's hard being good in Seattle, but Hopefully he'll return back to his, I don't know, ways in Winnipeg. Jack Mcbain, or the rights of Jack Mcbain, are gone. This is basically just a salary dump. He's going to Arizona for a second-round pick.
I like it. He wasn't going to sign Minnesota anyway, so fuck him.
Very good. Another cap dump. Jesus. Brian Little and Nathan Smith are going to Arizona for a fourth-round pick.
Mm-hmm.
No surprise here. Arizona is just eating up all this money for picks.
Yeah, man, they're Pac-Man and everything.
Yeah. Like we, I guess, forecasted earlier, we're going to talk about this guy. Marc-Andre Fleury goes to Minnesota for a second-rounder. I'll let you get to him in a minute, but I was kind of surprised Chicago didn't get a first-round pick for Fleury. I thought he was definitely going to go to a team that needed him, either Toronto or Edmonton, and get that first-round pick, but he only charged a second. What do you think of it? It's conditional.
If Minnesota makes the Western Conference Finals and Fleury plays 4 more of those games, then it becomes a first-rounder. So there's a condition on it because, Chicago's asking price was a first-rounder, and, Fleury kind of chose where he wanted to go pretty well, kind of like Giroud. When you get to that age and you're that, big of a name, you kind of help make decisions because
a lot of
it's
probably just out of respect. They seen what he did in the past and said, all right, well,
a lot of that has to do with location. I mean, Minnesota's not too far from Chicago, and compared to like Edmonton and shit like that, so makes sense for his family and stuff.
Good call. I wasn't really thinking about that, but you're right.
I'm so excited to see him play. Extremely good goaltender. I mean, he's on the older side, and he could be gone soon. So we want to relish in the Fleury's final days with us.
That's right. I can't wait to see him play.
And he's still a great goaltender too. He kind of got buried in Chicago because they're dog shit, but
his brown pads look really good with Minnesota's jerseys as well.
He doesn't even need to change it. Even his helmet's fine. Yeah. He's got like the feathers on it, but I mean it kind of fits Minnesota's look of like, green, brown,
Yeah. Good stuff. A couple nothing trades here. Alex Biega is going to Nashville for future considerations. Also, Braden Burke is going to Nashville for Frederick Allard. I don't know if you know who either of these players are.
I do. They're just minor league guys. Pretty well.
Fair enough. What else we have? Marcus Phillips is going to Winnipeg for Nelson Nogier from LA Kings.
Yeah, not too familiar with these guys, so
that's why I said they're nothing. Sorry, they're better than me. They're a lot better than me and making a lot more money, but just for name value. Nicholas Leddy and Luke Witkowski. Witkowski, sorry. Jeez, man. It's going to St. Louis from Detroit in exchange for Oscar Lundqvist.
Oscar Sundqvist.
Sundqvist. What is wrong with me? I can't do English right now. English is hard. Jake Wallman and a second-round pick. First of all, I think Detroit wins this trade. I was sad to see Witter go. He was one of my favorite defensemen because he crushes people in fights. But, I mean, for a Sundqvist and Jake Wallman and a second, I'll gladly take that trade. What do you think?
I think it works kind of for both teams right now, but I would give Detroit the slight edge because of that second-round pick there. And Sundqvist is a useful player. He'd probably be third line.
Yeah, I think so too. But St. Louis has enough people who can do what Sundqvist was doing, so they didn't. So you need to keep him, especially if they could bring in a defenseman like Nick Leddy that could help him in deep playoff runs.
Yeah, good move.
All right. Arturi Lehkonen moves from Montreal to Colorado for Justin Barron, a second-round pick, and Montreal also retains 50% of Lehkonen's cap. I like this deal for both teams. I think Lehkonen's a very useful playoff player. And I think Montreal just got some depth in Justin Barron and a second-round pick, obviously. So
I think Montreal wins this hands down. I love this
I don't know.
move.
We'll see. Arturi Lehkonen put on a show last year in the playoffs. So obviously, like Justin Barron, he's a defenseman, right?
He's a prospect, and he's looking good.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure he was a first or early second.
He's a first-round pick.
Wow, and a second-rounder. So for Arturi Lehkonen, they do have to retain some cap, but I'd make that trade any day of the week if I was Kent Hughes.
Kent Hughes is making some good moves here in Montreal.
For sure. Zach Sanford goes to Winnipeg for a fifth-round pick, and that's headed back to Ottawa. I think that's a decent trade. Not much, but Yeah, Andrew Cagliano goes to Colorado for a 5th-round pick, and he was coming from San Jose, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, that's a good move for Colorado. Just a veteran guy who can, knows how to play the game the right way in the
I love
bottom six.
Cagliano, man.
Yeah, he's
He's a
fast
speedy
too, really
guy.
fast
Yep,
skater.
and just probably a top 9 player. You can probably slip on a second line if you need him to, but for the most part, just a third liner, I think.
He wouldn't be in my top fucking six, I'll tell you that.
Well, if push came to shove, they found an injury or something, he
Yeah,
could. But a
yeah,
great penalty killer too.
yeah.
Speaking of penalty killers, Vlad Nemestikov goes from Detroit to Dallas for a 4th-round pick.
Mhm.
Um, just
I
depth,
like
man.
that.
I thought he was
Yeah,
worth a bit more than that, but if I was a
yeah.
team, I wouldn't pay a 3rd-rounder for him. So it makes
No,
sense.
I think I like this for Dallas personally.
I like it for
I,
Dallas too. I like watching Vladdy play all season. He was a good player.
hmm I think it's going to be good for their depth. They still need a bit of depth in Dallas, so I think it's a good move for them. But Detroit gets a pick out of it, and it's not like they're hunting for anything, so it doesn't really make a difference for Detroit. So it is what it is.
Yeah, for sure. And just like that, Steve, 40 minutes later, that's all we got. That's the whole
hmm
trade deadline recap. Is there any trades you'd like to go back to and talk about? Or
Not really. I think we did a good job covering it. The trade deadline day for me was not exciting because I was off the grid, gone on a camping trip. So I didn't, unfortunately, because of my schedule, I didn't get to join in the fun. But now here we are recapping it for all our lovely hockey tank fans.
that's right. Do you have winners for the trade deadline? Do you have any winners?
I
Who you
do.
think came out on top?
I would say the Anaheim Ducks because of all the picks and the assets they acquired. I would say the Minnesota Wild because I think they added some really smart pieces and veteran pieces, guys who can help make a difference in playoffs. And I'd almost put New York there, but I kind of hesitant because, I mean, they did give up a few picks and it's not, overall they're still quite a young team. But I think New York's right on that cusp of winning there, I think. And but yeah, I'd say Minnesota and Anaheim would be my top two.
Wow.
Also Montreal, man. Montreal did fine. I say Montreal's there with New York.
I was gonna
Did well.
say that would be I think the biggest winner in this trade deadline is Montreal. I think for what they gave up, they got a lot back. That's going to help their
They,
future.
he did really good.
My second would be the New York Rangers. I think just shoring up that depth and getting that depth defenseman, and they didn't pay a whole lot to do it, is really worthwhile. And I'd say another one is Chicago. I'm sure you'd love to see them then get more for Fleury, but that Hagel trade alone is
Yeah,
you got a
I kind
lot
of
of
forgot
value.
about that. But yeah, that was
So,
a big value there. Yeah.
so those are my three. Do you have any losers of the draft?
And I would have to say probably Buffalo and Philadelphia. They
How come?
didn't. Buffalo didn't. I figured Buffalo would be active at least a little bit to try and they're still not a good team. They're still trying to get more picks. I don't think they did much of anything. So I think that for
They got
them
rid of
is
Robert Hag.
yeah. Well, I know when teams are trying to buy. I mean, if you're in that position, you should be trying to sell, and I don't think they did that. So I would say Buffalo failed at the
That's
deadline.
a good point. That's not something I was thinking about, but great point.
And Philadelphia, uh, I don't know. I just got questions about Philadelphia in general. I think they need to make up their mind on what they're doing. I think they're confused.
Oh, they're
Confused.
so confused. They sign
So
Rasmus and
resign, yeah,
Ristolainen into this huge deal, and then they trade away their captain, and then they trade away depth in
yeah.
Justin Braun. Um, they don't know what they're doing, man.
I
It's
wouldn't be
Philadelphia.
surprised. I wouldn't be surprised if we're talking about new management in Philadelphia this offseason.
That's a good point.
Mm-hmm.
Can I go over some losers that I think?
Yeah, go
All
ahead.
right, so Toronto lost this trade deadline. They had a great opportunity to make more moves and maybe shop around that 1st-round pick a little bit, and all they really got back was Giordano, which at the best of it is probably a second-line defenseman and penalty kill, and Colin Blackwell. And they did give away 2 seconds for that, so I think they kind of lost it. They didn't do much of anything else. They sent down Mrazek and then picked them right back up again, which makes no sense to me. I guess they were
Yeah,
trying to move that cap out to bring in a goalie or something.
I figured Edmonton might bite on that guy.
Edmonton doesn't have the cap for that. He's still at like 4 million.
Yeah, I figured they might try and. I figured they were going to shuffle stuff around in Edmonton too. So
if Edmonton or Toronto went after a goalie, they'd have to get a game breaker. They'd have to get someone who was definitely better than both the guys. And I don't think Mrazek was better than Koskinen or Mike Smith. Honestly, I think he's around the same. I think
he's kind of just there. Yeah. I don't know. I'm not too upset with what Toronto did, but I'm not too thrilled. I mean, for me, they're just like, it is what it is. They didn't have much cap to begin with, so they're sitting in the just didn't really make any impact area. I don't think they lost because I like Giordano and I think he's a great leader, but I don't think they won either. So
for the reason that you said that Buffalo wasn't more active and that's why they're a loser is kind of why I'm leaning towards Toronto. They weren't active at all. So I see them as a bit of a loser.
You're a loser.
Oh man, you're gonna make me cry. My second loser would be Colorado for that same reason too. Sure, they got Lehkonen, but they gave up way too much for it, and they also got who did they get?
Manson.
So that was a good deal. But yeah, I just thought they should have done a lot more. They were definitely in with the Claude Giroud, but Giroud didn't want to go there. So what can they do? Like, they could have been in on Rickard Rakell, I guess. I would have liked to see him go to Colorado, and Colorado would have been a winner then in my eyes if they got Rickard. But they just didn't do enough, man. They weren't active enough for me to say that they were a winner or even got away as just neutral. I'd say they lost this trade deadline.
That's a fair assessment.
Especially giving up a Baron and a what'd they give up? Baron and a first or some shit? Baron and a second.
Yeah.
It's just way too much to pay for Lehkonen. Sorry, Colorado fans, if you don't agree, but it's one man's opinion.
That's all this is, a bunch of hockey opinions.
That's right, buddy. That's it. All right, nice. Do you have anything else to say to our YouTube fans? This is a YouTube exclusive video. We should have added that.
Yeah. Follow us on Instagram at Hockey Tank and listen to our podcast on whatever podcast platform you love. So, yeah, that's all I get to say, and we'll see you in the next Hockey Tank video. Oh, my God,
Steve, you're such a slut. You didn't even thank him for listening. You just went right for the plug.
Nah. Shocking. Listening like... no, wait, what did I say? Like and subscribe. That's what it is. Fuck, I just did it.